What's going on, guys? It is the Coaster Battleman here, finally, with a brand new video. I haven't made a video in a long time because my Mac hasn't been working. That's one factor. Another factor, I had final exams, and Christmas was amazing, if you guys are wondering. And yeah, this is my most overrated coaster at each amusement park I've been to since 2016. And I haven't really made a roller coaster related video in a long time, so let's do this. So hopefully you guys enjoy. So let's get started. So Six Flags Great America, we have the Dark Knight coaster, and the Dark Knight is, well, it's a wild mouse in a box, and in my opinion, out of all the rides I've had on this since like 2017, 2016, like, they have been very jerky rides, and they haven't been really that fun. The Dark Knight isn't really a fun ride. Well, one, I'm so used to riding it because it's at my home park, Great America. But two, it's not the smoothest ride in the world either. I only had like one decent ride on this, and that was a ride where I basically waited 0 minutes at all, and I got to ride in the front row of the car, and it was actually pretty decent. And then the back row of the car wasn't that good. So, Six Flags Great America, the Dark Knight coaster. Next, we have Six Flags St. Louis, and we have the Boss. And the Boss is pretty overrated. I know they fixed part of the layout, and I didn't get to ride it in 2018, but hopefully in 2019 I will be able to ride the Boss in its new layout, because they replaced the double helix with some different elements that I'm not sure about, but it is a bit better of a ride than it used to be. So the Boss, at one point it was one of my favorite coasters, but over time I wasn't really huge on it. So yeah, moving on, we have Six Flags America, and for me it doesn't seem like any of their coasters are super overrated, in my opinion. I mean, you could say Superman Ride of Steel, but that's a pretty good underrated coaster. In my opinion, Joker's Jinx is pretty good. This park has some underrated coasters, but I'd say the most overrated coaster here is probably Wild One. But just to be fair, there aren't really any underrated there aren't really any overrated coasters here. And yeah, moving on, we have Six Flags Over Texas, and I think it would be the Joker. And I know none of the coasters here are really that overrated. I mean, you could say New Texas Giant, but that was a phenomenal coaster. I really enjoyed it. But the Joker, in my opinion, was super overrated just because of how long the line was for it. And the reason why it was so long was because it was built in 2017, which you would think, I mean, even though it was Fright Fest, sure, you might think the Joker should have like a 45-minute wait, not like a 70-minute wait, but wrong. The line was super long, and the good news was they did have the single rider line, and I used that, and it only took like 15 minutes. So the Joker was pretty fun there, but in my opinion, the line was a little long for it, so that's the only reason why it's overrated in my opinion. Michigan's Adventure Wolverine Wildcat, and this is another one from personal experience that I had. So the line for this coaster, all the times that I rode it 3 times in the years 2015 and 2016, and all 3 times I rode this coaster, except for the final time I rode it, the line was basically an hour, 45 minutes to an hour, and that was brutal. And because they were only running one train, and it was ridiculous. And this coaster, I don't know how all those people were wanting to ride that. Like, there's a better wooden coaster right down the pathway named Shivering Timbers. It's super awesome. And Wolverine Wildcat is just a brutal wooden coaster from Din. And yeah, hopefully this coaster gets RMC'd. I hope it happens in the early 2020s. Please, Cedar Fair, RMC this coaster. Give Michigan's Adventure something good. Cedar Point Gatekeeper. And in my opinion, Gatekeeper is just really overrated. I mean, the line for it isn't that long, but I know my uncle, he is definitely starting to become a true coaster enthusiast, and because, well, of me, and he told me that Gatekeeper is one of his favorite roller coasters out there, and it's one of his favorites at Cedar Point, and he loves it. But I used to love this coaster. Like, I actually genuinely loved this ride. But in 2018, when I rode it, it got a lot more rattly and rough, which was something that's not good to say about the B&M wing coasters. So yeah, Gatekeeper, it hasn't aged the best in my opinion. I tried inner seat and outer seat, and it was just really shaky. It was so bad that I like X-Flight better than this ride. That's how shaky this coaster is. And I don't know what it was. Maybe it was a bad train or bad day or whatever, but the coaster was pretty rough, and it wasn't as smooth as it normally used to be. Next we have Kings Island, and this is based on the line there. It's Flight of Fear, and this ride, I don't know why people love this coaster so much or like it so much, because this coaster is terrible compared to Joker's Jinx. The line was super long for this ride. Like, it was ridiculous and long. Like, I mean, the theming for this coaster is pretty cool with the spaceship, but the line was so long. Every time I rode this, it was basically a 45-minute wait or longer. And the only good part of this ride is the launch. And this ride is just so inconsistent. I've had some good rides on Flight of Fear, don't get me wrong, but I've had some brutal rides as well, where the ride has jerked me around and it's just not good. And Flight of Fear overall, it's a good coaster sometimes, and then sometimes can be really bad. So it's pretty overrated. I don't think the line should be as long for it. And in my opinion, Flight of Fear is just a really big disappointment. Next we have Carowinds, and this is another one based on the line and from other people I've seen, aka GP, Nighthawk. Like, this is literally the most overrated coaster at Carowinds by far. Like, there was a kid, I remember I was with Cucumber Man 06, my friends Daniel and Caleb, and we were in the Nighthawk line, or in the Intimidator line, and there was a kid that said Nighthawk is the best coaster at Carowinds, and we were like, you do not know what you're talking about, kid. That ride is not that good. And he was also too scared to ride Fury 325 as well. Like, what the heck? Fury 325 is the best coaster in the world, don't get me wrong. But Nighthawk, it's just... I mean, it's not really that great. It's okay, I guess. It's one of the not as good coasters I've ridden, so... Moving on, we have King's Dominion, Intimidator 305, and this is actually a good coaster. I'm not saying this coaster is bad. This is a great ride, but it's not as good as I was expecting. Twisted Timbers, in my opinion, was better because of the stronger airtime, and Intimidator 305, it was super intense. It delivered on that. 10 out of 10 intensity, but airtime was like a 2 out of 10 because there was barely any airtime unless you were in the back row for the drop. And the airtime hills that did go through were super short, were so fast that I wasn't even getting any airtime, which is weird because Titan at Six Flags Over Texas, there's an airtime hill on there where you're going like over 80 miles an hour, and you actually get airtime on it, or I actually get airtime on it. But Intimidator 305, it's a really good ride. It's just a little overrated, and I think Millennium Force is a better coaster than it, because it has better airtime. So, yeah, moving on, we have Busch Gardens Williamsburg, we have Tempesto, and I know this is not Tempesto in the picture. I couldn't find any pictures of Tempesto. I mean, I could, but I just don't feel like it. But Tempesto is a Premier Rides launch coaster, and it's a Skyrocket 2 model, and these coasters are pretty solid. But in my opinion, Tempesto with the restraints, it just wasn't good because my neck kept banging on the restraints while we were going through the elements. Like, there were some great elements on this, but I couldn't enjoy them as much because of the neck banging. Like, if it was just pure lap bars, I would have enjoyed this coaster a lot. So we're moving on to Indiana Beach. We have Cornball Express, and this is the last park we have on here. And Cornball Express, it's a wooden coaster. It kind of looks like a GCI, but it's not. It's a CCI Woody. And I mean, it has a decent drop and a decent layout, but it's not as good as people say it is. In my opinion, it's not bad, but it's not great. It's kind of like one of those meh Woodies, kind of like Roar at Six Flags America. I thought it was okay, but not bad. So, yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, stay tuned for more videos, and coming soon, guys, this is a big video, my final 2018 top 30 roller coasters I have ever ridden. I will do a part 1 and part 2, stay tuned for that, and I apologize for any inconveniences you may have about me and uploading. My Mac computer hasn't been working, but hopefully it works soon, or works a bit better soon, so yeah, stay tuned for more videos.